Hi everyone, so today I'm going to talk to you about why I chose UAG over any of the Caribbean schools. So for the rest of this video, I'm going to talk about quality of education, location, resources, and cost. Before we get started, just a little warning, I am filming outside today, so that means that there will be some natural neighbory noises. Stay tuned. Okay, so before I get started, I do want to tell you that I have my laptop right here, so I will be looking down a lot because I don't want to make this, um, I don't want to give you incorrect information. I'm just basically telling you what I know, and hopefully you can go on from there and let me know if you have any questions of what I'm going to say. So before I explain why UAG versus the Caribbean, I do want to recommend that you apply to US medical schools first before you go the international route. The reason why I say this is because this will basically make your life easier once you go into the matching process, which means like once you're once you want to go into a residency, right, of your choice. So I say this because once you're in the application process, you have to say what school you're from, and then because you are going to either UAG or one of the Caribbean schools, you will be considered a U.S. international medical graduate or medical student. Um, and so they compare that to the U.S. medical students, both the DOs and the MDs. And I mean, unfortunately, it just means that some schools will automatically consider you as like a little bit like inferior in terms of knowledge because they don't know the standards that we're put up against, right? Um, so that's why I recommend to apply to medical schools in the United States before you try to go the international route. So go MD and apply DO. I think it'll make your life easier. So that's my like 2 cents. Okay, so now let's begin with quality of education. So first things first, the Caribbean and the UAG, they're both 4-year schools, which means that for the first 2 years, you're gonna go to either Mexico or one of the islands, basically for your basic sciences, and then after the once you're on your third and fourth year, you're gonna go to any of the affiliated hospitals that they have in the United States. So it depends which hospitals and like states, depending on the place that you go to, or depending on the school that you go to. But they basically do the same thing. So just letting you know. So secondly, um, I looked at at UAG website, and I'll show it or put it down in the description. And so once you see the curriculum, you know that I noticed that it was a system-based teaching. So what system-based teachings means is that they basically teach you every organ system. For example, like cardiovascular, they teach you the anatomy part of it, the genetics part of it, um, etc. Right, all at the same time. From my understanding, from like my like research and just like what I've been told, it's a better way of learning, and it's kind of like the newer way that schools are doing it here in the US versus, for example, only taking a genetics class and then that's it. Like they teach you all of like the organ systems, etc. Through the genetic portion of it. This way, the system-based learning it's better. So UAG does that, and I looked at some Caribbean schools. I didn't look through all of them, right? But I'm just going to use St. George as my example. They do that as well. So in that sense, both of them are, to me, are giving you the same education route as like the UAG one, as the US one. So something else that I forgot to say was that they both will teach you in English. I don't know. I saw, I think one of the comments asked whether or not the courses would be in English. In Mexico, the UAG courses will be in English. And in terms of professors, well, I mean, they both say that they have like great professors, right? So It honestly depends. I know that every school, even here, like they have questionable professors. So I kind of didn't worry so much about that, just because I figured that if I'm given the right material, and then I also have like online websites to look forward to and to look into and stuff like that, that I would be fine wherever, for either in the Caribbean or in UAG. I didn't think that that was too much. That was something that I like really wanted to look into. Okay, so something that we should talk about is location. So depending on what Caribbean school you decide to go to, you'll go to a different location. Something that I heard about going to the Caribbean was that we should consider hurricanes and power outages. So I know that it's not going to be common. So if someone from the Caribbean is seeing this, like, I'm not saying that it's a common thing. I'm just saying that it has been seen in the past. So, you know, so it's something to consider. And UAG, in comparison, is in Guadalajara, Mexico. And Guadalajara, Mexico is a capital of Jalisco, which is one of the states in Mexico. From my understanding, it's a really nice place in Guadalajara. It's like the second largest metropolitan area in the country after the main capital, Mexico City. So in comparison, so for me, I personally like the idea of going to a city in Mexico more than going to an island. Of course, that's not basically why I chose to go to UAG, because at the end of the day, I honestly consider that wherever I go, I'll probably find a place to live that's close to campus, and then I'll be going from campus to my like room, from my room to the campus. So it honestly like didn't 100% matter to me. um, but it's something to consider if you need, I don't know, if you need to know that information. Next, resources. So something that I wanted to look into is what kind of assistance they gave in addition to just like the education, right? So something to consider was like mental health resources, since it's very common for students to be overwhelmed. I mean, I'm hoping I'm not, but it's nice to know if there's assistance. USMLE, test prep courses, and counselors if they can help you out, you know. So, from my understanding, the Caribbean school, like St. George, does offer all of this. Like, um, I'm not 100%, but based off of my memory, they were better off in comparison to UAG. The reason why I say this is because out of all of those, I guess I mainly cared for the test prep and see um, if they offered it, right? So I specifically asked during the interview, actually, I asked if what kind of assistance do they give for students that are going to take the step one. And they basically said, well, some students get Kaplan and others self-study and others study in groups. So to me, that meant that they don't really offer like a prep course how other schools do. So that was something that I really, really had to like think about, because to me, I was like, if you're not gonna give me assistance, like how do I know that I'm gonna do well? It was something that really like um, made me consider the Caribbean. Um, in addition to that, I don't know about which Caribbean schools, but there are some Caribbean schools that don't let you take step one unless you pass one of their like tests that basically indicate that you will pass step one, because they don't want you to lower their stats. I don't know specifically which ones those were, but that's something to consider. And so if you're gonna go to a Caribbean school, look into that. I also heard that there's some schools that don't let you go into your third year if you don't take it. And from my understanding, that's not the case with UAG, because there are some students that are going to UAG that will not go to the US, right? Since it's in Mexico, there are some like students that will either go and study in like Central or South America, or I don't know, Does that make sense? Like, they don't need to take STEP, so therefore the school doesn't really force it upon them. So that's something that y'all should know. Okay, so lastly, I'm going to talk about cost. I'm going to put what they both cost, and by both I mean I'm going to either put a UAG and St. George or any other basically a Caribbean school that I find. But the main point of the cost was that they were basically the same. Just kidding. It's not the same. Here's the UAG one, and here is the St. George's tuition website. So what I'm showing you now is just a quick comparison. I basically added up every year for UAG. It turned out to be $171,120. But if you add the degree process and the insurance for malpractice, it turns out to be $174,720. And in comparison to St. George's, the first 2 years is a total of $139,825, and third and fourth year, which is the clinical years, $157,800. But I put in total tuition because I also added in the insurance, the term books that they require, and the graduation fee that they listed. So that's all I have to say about the tuition and fees cost. But something else I considered was where I will be living. So once you go to UAG, the living situation will be a lot cheaper because it's going to be in pesos versus in dollars. So I basically also use that to like think about. Okay, so considering everything that I just mentioned, I basically reached my conclusion that I would go to UAG. So what I basically told myself was that I need to just do very well in my STEP tests. This was when the step 1 was not pass, no pass. But regardless, I need to do well, pass step 1, and then get good scores for step 2 exams. And so that way I can be good in terms of applying for residencies, because at the end of the day, that is basically what should matter the most, or that's what mattered the most to me. So I basically thought about that, and then I also thought about how once I go into rotations, my 3rd and 4th year, I will be in the United States, right? So I should give a good impression to those doctors that are there, and basically network so that I can hopefully apply to those teaching hospitals later in life, and then maybe they'll remember me or something like that, and like I can kind of get in there in terms of my residency. But if not, I do know that it's not that hard, so don't get too scared if you go the international route in terms of going into residencies. For example, because I am interested right now in internal medicine, I found that the stats of California and New York are basically increasing in of U.S. international medical graduates into the internal medicine specialty. So because the stigma of it is not as strong as it was before, it's not like I'm never gonna get in anywhere, so I should go to like a school that's like better known, etc., right? Something that I would also consider that like helped me decide was that both of these schools are for profit, right? At the end of the day, they kind of use it as a business. Like, let's be real, they accept many students, and then they don't really put out their stats 100% accurately in terms of how many students do make it into like residencies and such. And I think at the end of the day, it has to be like where I come in, right? Me as a student, I have to just give it my all, and then look out for resources in terms of, let's say, for example, maybe not having a good counselor, or having a counselor that helps me through the process, like find a mentor or look online. So basically remembering all of these things I basically thought that since they were basically the same, the quality of education to me were basically the same. The location, it didn't matter so much to me, or one didn't basically push me towards the other, right? Like they were like, all right, I'm just gonna not be home. So whatever. And then the resources, yeah, that's the one that's kind of like tough, but I personally have experience with having to take like a test prep course with like a school, like something that they like provide. And I don't know, I personally, I'm fine with choosing myself like choosing myself the test prep course that I think is better for myself, if that makes sense. So, and in terms of cost, I feel like since they're basically almost the same, all I could think of was that it would be cheaper if I save money in terms of living and food if I go to Mexico. And then whatever money I do save up, that will be used for like my test prep courses, or basically the exam itself, like anything else that I need to make me be a better student, or like help me along my journey. I feel like it would be better, or I would have that more available to myself, if I went to the Mexico school. So that's basically why I chose it, because they're basically the same to me. And so at the end of the day, if I save a little bit more money in Mexico, I'm gonna go to Mexico to use that money for resources to help me out. I really hope that helped out, and hopefully that clarified questions. But if it didn't, and it maybe sparked some more, then just let me know in the comments below. I do reply back, as y'all see. And if it's a lot of questions, maybe I'll make another video, So good luck to y'all. Bye. Stay safe.